guys in New York, I'm going to ask in just a moment, but I'm going to ask those of you tuned in tonight at the same time, how did your week go? And I'll tell you how mine went and what we're doing in just a moment. But I'm going to pop that question out for Patrick Caracas in New York. Patrick, happy Sabbath. Good evening.
Oh, yeah, happy Sabbath.
Thank you. May I ask you, Patrick, how your week went and how it's going now that the Sabbath has arrived?
I think my week was fine, and it's going good right now.
That's good to hear. Your mother had a fall. Was it this week or was it the end of last week? She fell down some stairs and then she fell again in a parking lot a few days later.
I think that happened during the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she fell again, that was earlier this week.
Mm-hmm. And last report is she's recovering from that reasonably well, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. But she does have something that, Patrick, may I share this with those who are tuned in tonight or who will be listening later even? She has a condition for which she could use some prayer, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to mention it? I think it's the L word.
Which is multiple sclerosis.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Your mother has the M word. My mother had the L word. My mother had leukemia, some leukemia problem. Okay, your mom has some trouble from multiple sclerosis. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
And that basically, as I understand it, am I understanding right, it weakens the muscles? Maybe something else?
I know she has a hard time walking.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's problems with the nerves.
Okay, that's what...
Like an immune disorder, because it causes trouble walking, and her left arm is very weak, like shakes and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's... when I say okay, I'm saying okay, thank you for the information. Let's ask brethren to pray for your mom on that. Dale, Patrick, Dale is Patrick's twin brother, and so that'd be Mrs. Caracas. And can we give brethren her first name, Patrick?
Her first name is Lori.
Lori Caracas, and that's spelled with a K, K-A-R-I, and then another K, K-A-S. Right, Patrick?
Yeah.
Okay, and all right, so I'm going to ask for prayers for your mom, and then if you check your email later, I sent a picture from where my truck broke down on the way home, but in the back of the truck, I had a nice, good-sized box for Dale that I was able to pick up. I sent an email to your 833 blah, blah, blah email address with that picture and letting you know that I broke down, I got stuck, so it made me late getting back here tonight. And let me... Patrick, I'm going to keep you on the phone, but let me just sit it down for a moment while I explain to everyone what we are doing tonight for Bible study. Now, Patrick told you how his week went. It was good overall. He's just being very positive about it. He and I worked through some things this week. And for me, I made a lot of accomplishment this week. It means I got up early. And I mean out the door, like 6:30 a.m. in the morning, and working on some things. I wish I took some pictures. I wish I were able to have them up on the slide for you tonight, but I'll try to do that in the morning because I think you'll be encouraged. I had to set up a second mailbox for the land that we donated to the church ministry, the land right next door to us, several acres, upon which we could do a lot of things. If you pray about that, brethren, I'll appreciate it. A lot of potential we have for that land. It's got a beautiful creek down at the base of it. It's got woods that are just magnificent for going out and meditating and just seeing birds in the wild. There's a bird aviary back there, a natural bird aviary. You walk into that, all the birds start talking to you. One of the things they say, hey, please don't disturb what we've got here. But if you're calm and appreciative of the birds, they'll stay, not flutter off and not try to fly down and attack you or anything. And they'll keep chirping and singing and doing the things birds do. And then other areas, you can walk along the creek and there's rocks you can go sit on and hear the bubbling of the creek water go through there. It's just beautiful down there. We got several acres, and I've donated that to the church ministry. The local county is requiring me to put a little meeting hall on it. I've brought a temporary building in there, and I'm about to take a picture of it and take it in and say, hey, will this suffice, for you taking the taxes off, because it is church ministry owned property, which, government-wise should make it untaxed, tax-free. And it was tax-free before I donated it, because they have a thing for seniors where if you homestead it, it's tax-free. But once I split the property up and donated it to the church ministry, they taxed me last year because they said, oh, you got to have a building on it. I said, yeah, well, who will meet in it during COVID? But they stuck me with a couple $100 tax anyway. I paid it. I'm not complaining about it, but I got to put something they'll be satisfied with as a meeting hall on that property, which is encouraging me to look into building something where if some of you come in for a visit, we could hold services there, and we could maybe even hold a Feast of Tabernacles there. Oh, I hope Daniel Boone Newton he lives in Charleston. He's up visiting his sister let me ask, Patrick talked to Daniel yesterday. Do you remember the name of that city where Patrick Boone Newton's sister, where he's living with her at the moment, is, Patrick?
No, I don't think he told me his sister's name.
Not her name, but the city where she is, where he's visiting. It may be something like Ohio, maybe even...
I don't think we talked about his sister.
Okay, well, he did mention it to me, but my brain is in overkill or, overdrive, and I can't quite remember at the moment. But he's visiting his sister in another state, and while he was up there, he went up there for some medical exams, and he had some medical condition. I should be able to tell you about it, because I should ask you to pray for Daniel Boone Newton. His middle name actually is Boone, like Daniel Boone. His parents named him Daniel Boone, but his last name is Newton. So it's Daniel Boone Newton. And he has become legally blind, so he very much depends on other people to help him get around. And let's pray for Dan. And what was I going to tell you? Well, he needs prayer. And, and I did a feast with Daniel one year, and it was very enjoyable. Really enthusiastic guy. I think, Patrick, you enjoyed your talk with him yesterday, from what you told me, with Daniel being such a positive, encouraging, uplifting guy, especially considering the condition, the thing he is suffering. I was kind of looking for some word back on that, but it's okay, Patrick. I'll bring him with another question or so later. I was about to tell you what...
Yeah, I like talking to him.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, thank you, Patrick, and I'm sorry I didn't wait long enough for your response there. Yeah, Daniel is a very uplifting, positive guy, even and especially considering the things physically he is suffering, like the legally blind and the stroke and the heart attacks that he's had. He's very much looking for Christ to return and set up his kingdom and government, and keeping God's law until then, and staying in touch with God's end-time apostle via the recordings and the publications that God has preserved, keeping alive the work that God did through Mr. Armstrong during the Philadelphia era, which continues as God's end-time apostle Herbert Armstrong explained it would until when, Patrick? When will the next era formally commence, the Laodicean era?
I think when the Great Tribulation starts.
Yes, that's exactly what Mr. Armstrong informed us, and the Bible backs him up in that. After the fifth seal opens, the fifth seal being the Great Tribulation, right, Patrick?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Patrick, it's nice having somebody to talk with a little bit while I do these live streams because, interactive is cool. I was telling you what we're doing tonight. We are still testing I don't know whether to call it a program. It's actually a service, a hosting service. We're still in the midst of a 14-day test. I don't have to pay anything during this 14-day test, but I have to watch it. The test only gives us 30-minute live streams, and it has no mercy. When 30 minutes are up, whoosh, it cuts off. You don't even have time to explain, blah, 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 we've got to sign off. No, if it's 30-minute mark, wham, it cuts off on you. Some of you found that out last week. And I did voice the complaint, Dominic, that, not complaint so much as problem that you encountered with it cutting you off a couple times. I did explain that to the crowd casting company that we're testing with. And they explained that it could have been that you needed to, I don't know, what did they say, something like clean your cache, or I don't forget what they said, but they said there shouldn't have been a problem with it. Just sometimes the internet, for some reason where you are, may slow down. It was just, they thought it was just a freak thing. I'd like to know if it happens to you again. But I'm also, because of, I have to tell you, crowdcasting people, I mean, you got some great features. We're looking at them. But there are other people that have those features that aren't quite priced as hefty as you guys out of the UK priced them, pricing them based on the euro and a VAT tax, which, you're required. Well, let's see, now that you guys have Brexited, now that you've exited, the Britain has exited the EU, do you still have to pay that VAT, that VAT tax, that value-added tax? When you say VAT tax, that's actually kind of repetitive because the T in VAT is tax. You have to pay that VAT. But it's a tax, and it's a value-added tax that the EU has set up at 15%. A lot of states in the United States will charge 6, 7, 8, 9, even 10%. Maybe some charge a little more, but EU is charging 15% tax on stuff that comes anywhere out of the EU. All right, I didn't mean to complain over much about that, but I look at what things cost, not just monthly, but I multiply them times 12 and say, okay, on an annual basis, if I'm going to put out $3,000 in the year, is this service really worth that? Or can we have it programmed ourselves for half that money, and then we don't have to pay for it next year because we own it? And I'm actually, I got some programmers working on to do the features we want to do, like chat, so you can chat while we're on live, and that we'll have a screen where we can see it. I can even bring it up on the screen and let you see what people are saying, as long as you chat on an area is public, and that we may put up on the screen here and show, and then I may respond to it and answer. And any of you who are trolling us, you know, when we put that up there, I'm going to say, all right, here's your answer, and bye-bye. You know, especially when you troll with things like, I'm going to go watch this other minister with this vanity plate Church of God group. You know, toodaloo, you know, that's not welcome here. I mean, because, look, I tell you what God did with Robert Collins, and I've gone over that many times. You've got to watch my time here tonight. Now, during this 30-minute test, I'm able to hit a button at the end of the 30 minutes and roll us over into another 30-minute stream. I don't know what that does for you on your end. That may mean you've got to recycle your page in order to stay with us for another 30 minutes. And I did have a software problem. I had to write the company that I bought a lifetime subscription to certain software, and they just cut us off. And I'm saying, wait a minute, you sold that to us on a lifetime basis. I'm not dead yet. So my software should still be working. How come you cut it off on us? And that software is something I use to edit Mr. Armstrong's programs so that we don't show the intro, we don't show the outro, we don't show the little promos in the middle when those occur. Because a lot of the things they're promoting, Mr. Armstrong will mention at the end of the broadcast, say, read this book. And we just stay with the meat of the program. And it makes it flow a lot better for us. But I have enough of those edited that tomorrow during Sabbath service, we probably will not run on this crowdcasting thing during the regular Sabbath service tomorrow, because I want to have the 2 hours uninterrupted, although I may do a half hour on crowdcasting just to tell those who tuned in there that, look, we need to go back to the regular page till next week. And I'm already looking at some just as good but less expensive programs. I mean, you know, look, I don't mean to be offensive, but you gotta evaluate things. Now, if the more expensive proves from something some of you tell us that, Steve, this works great, it's worth having, then I'll reconsider. Okay, so it's still open at this moment, but my tendency is I'm leaning toward we're probably going to look at some more software, and I'll make a determination sometime next week. Those of you who registered on this crowdcasting thing, that's great, because until our trial period expires, I'll be able to send you an email and say, hey, here's what we're doing. Come back to our regular page, or come back here again next week, or whatever. And the whole idea behind this, Patrick, I'm going to ask you if you think this is a wise thing to consider, is the fact that since we've seen evidence that powerful social media companies have used their power of censorship, for example, with cutting the president off Twitter last year, and I think maybe they cut him off Facebook too if he was on there. You know, we want to not be in a situation where if some of these social media cut us off, we're just off. We want to have something you can find on it, like, for example, on our own homepage that we are on tonight, so that you'll know where to go if you don't find us on the big social media, in case they've said, we don't like the truth and we're cutting off every program that speaks in any way of the truth. And that'd make us lose contact unless you knew where to find us on cogtv.org. I appreciate a lot of the very nice comments some of you have been making to me. I have seen maybe not all of them yet, but I've seen some of them. They have been encouraging. Everything I've read so far has been encouraging. I thank you for that, especially after some of you familiar with the last year and a half. We've had some trials, some struggles, some things, some fiery trials God let us go through. And, you know, there's a good purpose in that, brethren. When some of you tell me you are having a trial, God has let me have some real Let me see. Can I say the word Lulu of a trial, Patrick? Is there any offense in that expression?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, thank you. And I've had, God's let me go through some trials, so when I hear some of you going through them, I am able to empathize and relate with you more than I maybe would have been had God not let me go through some of these trials. Some of you may have wondered, why, Stephen, why is God letting you go through such a trial? Well, it's because God's a great God of understanding love. He sent Jesus Christ to go through a crucifixion for us and to suffer temptation of sin like we all suffer and go through. Yet he resisted it, where some of us make the mistake of giving in to it. And but he's merciful, and it's a common, what God is doing is both law and grace. We have to keep his law, but there's grace there for us because God knows we're going to goof up. Now, that grace does not say you've got a free license to sin. What it says is when you do stumble, not meaning to sin, but you stumble. Either you're tired and your willpower is down and you give in, or you go to some place where you shouldn't be. I'm just referencing things that were in a survey that not the church, but some people in religion did that I'm aware of, that is actually based on something we all should understand. At the top of the list of when people sin the most, could I spring this on you, Patrick? When would you say people sin the most? In what condition, what situation? Off the top of your head, could you just give a guess or what you think it might be?
When they're tempted to sin?
Well, of course, yeah, of course. A lot of people just give in at temptation. I think there was an old expression, I won't say who said it, but I think he was just quoting a popular expression anyway that says, I can resist anything but temptation. So that would kind of be along the lines of what you were just saying there, Patrick, would it not?
Yeah.
I can resist anything but temptation. Yeah, but on that survey, Patrick, were you going to suggest another one or say something else? I'm sorry.
I wanted to bring up something.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Mr. Armstrong bring up to you that in 1971, when you read his book about the laws of the seven laws of success, which should be our number one spiritual goal, not the physical thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he told you that our ultimate spiritual goal should be to watch ye therefore and pray always that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass and stand before the Son of Man.
When he said what he said, which relates to that scripture you're referencing from Luke 21:37, which happens to be on the screen next to me, he didn't quote the whole scripture, but I did recognize that he was making reference to this scripture because he, first of all, said that last part that you just said, Patrick. He said, well, your number one goal spiritually, Stephen, should be to be accounted worthy to stand before the Son of Man. Now, he didn't mention the watch and pray part of this verse, but I recognized that he was coming from that verse with the conclusion of it. And then, were you going to go on with the second one, or you want me to repeat it?
When he said your number one goal should be to stand before the Son of Man in the first resurrection?
Yes. And then you do remember, I've told this before, so I think you remember what he said should be our second spiritual goal.
I don't think I remember that one.
Okay, it's the part of this same verse that precedes being accounted worthy to stand before the Son of Man, where Christ said, do these couple of things, pray, watch and pray always, so that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass. Now, the way Mr. Armstrong worded that to me was your second spiritual goal should be to be accounted worthy to escape the great tribulation, which is saying the same thing, to escape all these things that shall come to pass, because Christ was in between the first four active seals and the fifth seal when he said this. Watch those first four seals so that you can be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, commencing with the fifth seal, great tribulation. So when Mr. Armstrong said your secondary goal should be to be accounted worthy to escape the great tribulation, he was citing this part of this verse. And I never saw him write that up anywhere or speak it, other than answering me privately when I asked him one-on-one, just me and him, walking either in the student center or just outside past the egrets, past the auditorium. Well, the auditorium was being built in 71. It was still just a hole in the ground then that they had been working on for a year or so at that time. They spent nearly a year and a half, 2 years just on the foundation. That auditorium has a solid foundation. But, Patrick, I just noticed we've been on for a little more than 29 minutes. This thing's going to cut us off at exactly 30. I'm going to sign us off for tonight. This was another test of our Crowdcaster thing. We'll be on again in the morning at 9:30 a.m. Central Time, 10:30 Eastern Time, 3:30 p.m. in the United Kingdom, Greenwich Mean Time. And hope you'll join us then. In the meantime, I wish you all a happy Sabbath. Sorry for the short one, but we're just testing this system out tonight. And let me get quickly to our sign-out music, and we'll just have to go. For now, mañana. We'll see you in the morning. Happy Sabbath. Patrick, thanks a lot. Amigo.